You have big dreams of losing weight and creating a healthy, joyful life. But you find yourself craving sugar, caught up in what the scale says, and diet hopping. Dieting is the old way of losing weight. And the good news is I'm going to give you a new way of eating so you can ditch diets for good and build a healthy relationship with real food. My name is Megan Olson, certified nutrition practitioner, creator of Skinny Fitalicious, and your host of the Dish on Diets show.
Hello, friends. Today I have a special guest on the podcast. Her name is Nancy. Nancy came to work with me in her late 50s. We've been working together for several months now. And when she came to me, she needed help getting her weight off because she told me she noticed she was no longer able to get weight off as easily as she could when she was in her 20s and 30s. And Nancy told me that she would be super strict with her diet, super strict with her food, and she could do it for a few days, but always on the fourth day, she would overeat, then beat herself up, and the beat up would last for weeks. And Nancy would convince herself eventually to try another diet, and she did many diets, and she would think to herself, well, I'll just eat these yucky foods or take these pills until I lose weight. And she thought she could keep the weight off once she lost the weight, somehow magically. But now she realizes how flawed her thinking was and how she really wasn't approaching her weight loss as a lifestyle transformation. And Nancy really did believe when she first started working with me that her problem was just about food. But what she learned during our time working together was how her negative self-talk was really the real problem. And it was keeping her stuck in a cycle of undereating, overeating, and just talking down to herself and beating herself up a lot. And she really thought when she heard people say you have to make a lifestyle change to lose weight, she thought that lifestyle change meant memorizing a meal plan or following a set number of calories and eating foods that you really didn't like. But what she learned during our time coaching together is that a lifestyle change means learning what works in your body, what works for your lifestyle, learning what foods you enjoy that are healthy, and making choices that you can really live with till the day you die. Because if you can't execute it until the day you die, you really can't keep the weight off. So Nancy and I started with some really small steps instead of a massive major lifestyle overhaul overnight. And Nancy shares with you in today's podcast how she kept thinking, this isn't hard enough. What Megan's telling me to do isn't hard enough. How am I ever going to lose weight with such small steps? But Nancy really came in, trusted the process, and took the time during our coaching to figure out what to eat that was healthy, that she actually liked, how to meal prep it, how to be prepared ahead of time, and how to feed her family as well. And she says now today how empowered she feels after going through this journey. She's no longer emotionally eating and numbing out with food. Nancy has control over food, and she can keep cookies in the house without eating half the package at once. Oh yeah, and Nancy's also lost some weight. Here's Nancy's story. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Megan. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to have you on the podcast today. Thanks for coming on and joining and being willing to share your journey with all these lovely ladies who are listening.
Well, I'm excited to share.
So you and I have been working together. Well, I think we started working together in January of 2022. And I want you to just kind of, first of all, tell everybody a little bit about you, whatever you're comfortable feeling, sharing with everybody on the phone here. But just share a little bit background about you and how you came to work with me.
Okay. Well, I'm 59 and I live in Knoxville. I work part-time. I have a couple of adult kids and I manage to keep myself very busy. And I was just in a place where I was not feeling very happy with how I was looking and feeling. So I was looking for some help.
Oh, okay. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your weight loss journey. How long were you trying to lose weight? Is it something that you were struggling with since you were a child, or something that really came on later in life in terms of that weight? What does your weight loss journey look like? Explain that to us a little bit.
Okay, well, um, it didn't really start until later in life. Like I got married in my mid 20s and I gained some weight, about 20 pounds, and I was able to get it off fairly easily with like Weight Watchers. And then I had a baby at 35, and it was a lot harder to get it off. But I started really running and lifting weights, and I was able to get it off that time. And then again, in my mid 40s, I started gaining and I couldn't get it off.
Mm.
And at this point, it was like 50 pounds. And I had tried everything. It was like Atkins, Weight Watchers. I even did some company, I can't remember the name of it, but they gave you these pills and you had to take like 5 or 6 pills multiple times a day and drink these really gross shakes. And I never lost more than 10 pounds. And I would just turn around and put it right back on. It just never seemed to work for me. And I was getting
Wow.
really frustrated.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So all of these different things are things you did up until the time that you and I worked together, huh?
Yes. And I just couldn't stick with it because it never felt healthy. And it didn't seem, I was eating a lot of like processed, what I call fake foods and artificial sweeteners. And they were making me feel bad. And the artificial sweeteners really bothered my arthritis. And I couldn't do it. And I was feeling so desperate and so frustrated. I knew I had to just do something different.
Hmm. Yeah. So really, it sounds like a lot of those things were not things you could do for more than a temporary time frame to lose weight. It just wasn't realistic to continue doing those things until the day you died.
It wasn't. They didn't make me feel good. And I didn't feel good about the foods I was eating. I was just so desperate that I thought I'll just eat these yucky foods
Mm.
until I lose the weight. And then I'll phase them out and eat the food I want to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny how we think that, oh, if I just do this strict thing, then I will be able to go back to the way I was eating and keep the weight off. Like that's such a funny thing to me, now looking back, because I know I thought the same thing before I lost my 80 pounds. Like I thought if I could just punish myself enough through the diet and get through it to lose the weight, then somehow magically I would know how to eat. That's what I thought.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like once I get it off, I'll just be able to keep it off.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you were thinking that as well. So, and I think a lot of women think that. Like, I don't think they actually think beyond the actual weight loss. Like, well, how am I actually going to keep this weight off? So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so I thought it was interesting too that you mentioned you did, I think you said Weight Watchers, and you said you did that like in your 20s or something, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah. The first time it did.
Okay, then what happened after that? I'm curious.
It's, I just, I couldn't get the weight off as easily. I don't know if it was because I was older. Well, I know now what it was, but at the time, I didn't understand it. And after I would do it for like a couple of weeks and it wouldn't work, so I kept doing it.
Mm-hmm. How many times do you think you went back to Weight Watchers? Do you know?
Oh my gosh, at least 5,
Oh, wow.
at least.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you say you know now why it didn't work, and we'll get to that in a little bit because you know better now. But it is really true. Once we do a diet, it gets harder and harder and harder to lose weight, even if you go back to the same thing that worked for you initially. So we'll come back to this, and you can share with everybody what you learned. But I want you to share first, like, how did you find me? I can't even remember because it's been so long since we've been working together, and I can't remember how you ended up finding me.
Well, you showed up in my Instagram feed and you had some really yummy recipes. And so I started investigating and I found your podcast And I was like, wow, I can't believe these are free because they were so informative and so helpful. And I just identified so much with the stories of what the women were saying. And it was just normal food, and the recipes weren't like super complicated because I don't particularly like to cook, but I cook. And it was all stuff that I thought, okay, I can do this. This sounds like something I can do. And I just got what those women were saying to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sounded a lot like you, huh?
It did. It was crazy. And they would talk about being stuck, and I was in this ridiculous cycle of just, I would get fed up with myself, and then I would be real restrictive for like 3 days, and I'd do good. And then there was something about that fourth day, I would just completely fall off the wagon, and I would go berserk and start eating all this stuff. And then the negative self-talk, I would just beat myself up for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And these women would talk about how they would just, oh, yeah, you're so mean to yourself, and you're like, you're such a loser. And I was like, I deserve to be fat so that everybody knows that I'm a loser. And it was awful. It was awful what I would say to myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know you and I talked about that in our initial consultation, because I think that was one of the things you had told me was, Megan, I know it's my mindset. I know it's my negative self-talk that's really getting in the way. I remember that.
Do you really? Wow. Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's crazy. I didn't appreciate how much that can affect your habits and what you do. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. So since we're talking about that, share with everybody who's listening, how has this been different, this approach to our time working together? How was that different from all the other things you did before?
Oh, gosh, it's so different. Well, you start off with really small steps, which was just such a new concept to me. I kept trying to do this major lifestyle overhaul, and I love that it just broke it down into small, manageable steps. You just start out with breakfast, and you work on that until it's just a no-brainer, and it's just a habit. And I kept thinking, this isn't hard enough. This has got to be more difficult. And I remember having to say to you, I'm just going to trust the process because I just don't see how this is going to work. But I did. I trusted the process, and we got there. But it just made it so much more manageable.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Is it interesting how we think it needs to be harder? Like, I need to punish myself harder or be harder on myself to achieve my goals. Like, where in the world does that come from? It's so silly when you step back and think about it.
Well, it is, but that is exactly what I thought. I was like, this has to be a major overhaul. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
But it sure did. And it was life-changing.
Yeah. So to everybody listening, stop trying to overhaul everything at once. Baby steps, little things count. You don't have to be so hard on yourself.
So true. So true.
Okay.
Complete game changer for me.
I know. And I remember having to talk to you a lot about that mindset in the beginning, like slow down, be okay with the small stuff, just one step at a time, trust the process. And you just kind of released yourself and said, yep, I know all the other stuff didn't work. So I'm just going to listen to you and follow what you're telling me, even though I'm not sure it's going to get me there.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. It's so empowering. I feel just so different. It's not restrictive like I thought it was going to be. And I was thinking today, I made a run to Trader Joe's and got some coffee and my favorite goodies. And I thought, wow, I can keep these in the house. And I don't just eat half the package of cookies and they're just there when I want one once in a while. And that is so empowering. It makes me feel so strong and so good about myself.
Yeah. The food no longer has that pull over you.
It doesn't. And I never, ever thought I would be the person to say that. Never.
What do you think changed? How do you think that happened?
I definitely the self-talk. It was the self-talk and just realizing that I'm the one in control and I can do this. And it's just so empowering, and to be kind to myself. I mean, I was saying things to myself that I wouldn't say to my worst enemy, the way I would talk to myself. And that was just holding me back so much. I just had no idea. I couldn't appreciate how debilitating that was to my journey.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So many women, when they come work with me, don't believe me at first that it's the negative self-talk and how you're thinking about things, how you're treating yourself and beating yourself up. They'll all tell me, I'm not doing any of that stuff. And I'm like, but you are. If you're overweight, you're doing that to some degree. You're just not consciously aware of it. And my job, the way I see it, is it's my job to help you see what you're doing to yourself, how you're being so mean to yourself. Because when you start to see that, you're like, oh gosh, I would never like treat my best friend or my partner or my family members that way ever. But for some reason, you're treating yourself that way and thinking it's helping you, and it's not.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is exactly it. It was just, I had no idea. And I didn't really believe the correlation either. I was like, oh, this is about food, not not what I'm saying to myself. But that was not the case. I was definitely sabotaging myself. Absolutely.
Yeah. Everybody thinks it's about the food. And speaking of the food, because you mentioned you went to Trader Joe's. So, and you said you picked up some of your favorite things. And I'm sure there's women listening to this thinking there is no way I could bring my favorite foods in the house and have good control around them. And I'm sure you thought that at one time too. So
I did.
People who are listening to this are probably curious, like, does Megan have all of her clients eating junk food all day? Like, exactly what are you eating? What are you eating, Nancy? Share with them.
And I'm not eating junk food. I just have it. That's funny you said that. I just have them as a treat every 2 or 3 days. But I'm eating a lot of stuff that I do repeat a lot of things, but I can make the slightest tweaks and it seems like something new. But I'm eating wholesome food. I'm eating more fruits and vegetables than I ever have before. I'm eating a lot of oatmeal and nuts and just avocados and things that I really enjoy. And like tonight, I was going to make some Greek marinated chicken. That's going to be amazing with some grilled vegetables. And gosh, one of your recipes that I just love is that Asian pulled chicken. Oh my gosh, my whole family loves that.
Yeah, that one's from my
cookbook. Have that once a week now. It's so good.
That is a good recipe. Yeah. So you're eating a lot of really good, nutritious foods. But I imagine that, for a lot of people listening to this call, they're like, yeah, I know I should probably be eating healthier, but I just can't do it. What do you think about that?
It's, well, I mean, you can. It's just, I guess I don't know how to, I don't mind it. And then I enjoy it. I mean, I look forward to my breakfast. I have, that blueberry, I have these blueberry baked oatmeal and I put maple syrup on it and I put walnuts on it. And I have a side of yogurt and I just love it. I enjoy it. So it's not stuff that I mind eating.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying, though, is you spent the time while we were working together figuring out what you actually liked. That was good for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it did take I had to kind of play around a little bit to find things. But now I have definite, like 3 or 4 things that I can prepare for lunch, and I can even food prep for the week so that it's just there ready to go. And when I get really hungry, I can just grab it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm highlighting this because I think sometimes people think when they hire a coach or they try to lose weight, they think that there's not going to be some trial and error, but there is. There's a little bit of trial and error that has to take place where you have to figure out, what do I actually like? And then use some of the guidelines that I give you nutritionally so you can actually balance your meals, get the right meal composition so you keep your hunger and cravings in check. But I think sometimes people have that wrong expectation of, oh, I should just know exactly this is what I should be eating. And then you're starting to eat things you don't even like. Well, you got to go through the process of figuring out what you like and what you don't like. And sometimes that means there's going to be some duds and some things you don't like. And that means, well, that didn't work. We're moving on to the next thing, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I've found that if I don't anymore, if I don't like it, I'm not going to eat it. I'm not going to waste the energy and the calories.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to something else. Yeah, I'm not going to waste my time and calories. Yeah.
Were there any foods, do you
Absolutely.
remember when we started working together, were there any foods you thought you shouldn't be eating or that you couldn't eat?
Oh, yeah, like maple syrup and walnuts. And now I eat them every day. Those are some things that I love. I
Mhm.
love that combination. And avocados. And those are all things I love and enjoy. And I probably eat them daily now.
Wow. Wow. Big difference,
Yeah,
huh?
it
So,
is.
so fair to say this wasn't a really restrictive, strict diet plan, like some of the other things you did in the past.
No. And in fact, one of the things I love is potato chips.
Mhm.
And I'll have potato chips 2 or 3 times a week for my lunch. With
Mhm.
my lunch, not just for my lunch, but yeah.
Yeah. So
But
definitely
yeah,
balancing things out and incorporating some things you like, not restricting them.
exactly, exactly.
Mhm. And as I recall, you had some major life events going on during our time together. I mean, do you remember when we signed up and started working together in January, you were having a major surgery?
Yes, I had just had a total knee replacement on my left knee,
Hmm.
and I was 4 weeks out from that, and I started with you. And then 3 weeks into the program, I had a right knee total replacement.
Yep.
So yeah, I had some big time stuff going on. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I had a career change. So that turned out to be a really emotional thing that I've always considered myself an emotional eater. And now I realized, it's kind of segueing, but I feel so in control now that my water heater busted and I had to get it replaced. And oh my gosh, I just want to go eat a bunch of chocolate. Didn't even cross my mind.
Mm.
So I've really come a long way. I mean, I've gone through all these difficult struggles, and a lot of times a bad day would just send me into an emotional eating frenzy. And that's not happening now
Why do you think it's not happening now?
because I am dealing with the problem and not using food to comfort myself.
Mm.
I think I would get so anxious and worked up about how to solve problems that rather than just thinking it through, I would just be like, oh, I can't deal with this, and just eat a bunch of chocolate and just sit and just try to numb out. And I don't do that anymore. I
Mhm.
journal, I think, I just slowly solve the problem, and it just isn't a crutch for me anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. So what you just said to me was you used to, when these situations happen, you used to think to yourself, I can't handle this. And then you would go eat. So the thinking, I can't handle this, was what was actually driving you to eat. And from my perspective, the big change is you're not thinking that anymore. You're not thinking I can't handle this anymore.
Exactly. And it is amazing to me that I have made such a huge change like that in such a short period of time. I mean, that's a major lifestyle change.
It is. It's major. It's huge. And I also wanted to highlight for the listeners that, like, look, your life wasn't like perfect during this time frame. You had 2 major surgeries. You had a career change. Actually, you had like 2 career changes, because I think you went to one job and then you decided to leave, and then you went to a different career change. Like, there was a bunch of things that were going on. So your circumstances in life were not perfect during this time frame at all.
No, in fact, I think this is one of the more difficult years that I've had in a long time, and that includes COVID. So you're right. It has been a rough year so far.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to hear that, because sometimes we think we cannot make a lifestyle change, or that we think we can't take good care of ourselves. But really, it's the thinking that's wrong. We can do things for ourselves. We can learn to do new things and support ourselves in new ways, even with all that stuff going on. And I would argue that sometimes that's the best time to have a coach, is when you have all of that craziness going on in your life, because they can hold you steady.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, when things are going just great, that's not when you're being really challenged. And it's nice that you have that support. I hadn't thought about that, Megan. You're right.
Always learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So definitely you have come a long way. And I'll just give the listeners my perspective. I mean, when you first started with me, you were definitely restricting your diet a lot. I remember there were a lot of foods where you're like, I can eat that? Really? I can eat that? And I was like, yeah, Nancy, you can eat that. You can eat that.
Yeah.
You can eat anything you want, really. You can. It's just food. Right. And then there were
Yeah.
times too when you would come to a call and you would say, Megan, I just did horrible these last few weeks. And I would say to you, but look at all of these other 20 or 40 things that you did do well. Like, you did awesome, like, as far as I'm concerned. So,
Yep.
I mean, you
Yep.
definitely, from day one to the last day of our coaching, I mean, the transformation was so huge. But from my perspective, it's huge because you're not being so mean to yourself anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just sitting here talking about this just makes me realize, wow, I've really come a long way
I know.
in a short period of time. It's just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've made some major changes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
6 months is not that much time if you think about it.
No, not for big changes like that. It isn't. No.
No. So you said earlier about Weight Watchers that you now know what was going on, that it was harder for you to lose weight every time you went back to Weight Watchers. Do you want to share your perspective on that?
Well, and again, I'm not an expert, but I believe what happened is once you set your body into deprivation mode, it just kind of holds on to things. And I was restricting too much, and I certainly was not eating the amount of protein I needed. I was not eating the amount of fats I needed. It was not a healthy balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more I would try, the more restrictive I would get. And it just wasn't healthy. And if anything, if I did lose, it was muscle that I was losing and not really fat, which set me up for the next time that I would go back and try in a month. Means that my metabolism was even lower because I was missing some muscle mass. So it was just a crazy cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for those of you listening, what Nancy's talking about is metabolic adaptation. So the first time you do a diet, generally speaking, if you haven't dieted before, you haven't dieted in a really long time, generally speaking, it'll work pretty well. But then if you gain the weight back, you tend to lose muscle mass when you lose weight. So if you gain weight back, you're going to gain fat. You're not going to gain muscle back. So you've lost that precious muscle. And now your metabolism, your metabolic rate has downregulated as a result of that muscle loss. And so you've gained fat back. You got a slower metabolism. And so then you go back to that same diet. Your metabolism adapts very quickly to that same diet. It already remembers that's what you were doing. And so that it's going to fight you, fight you, fight you. And I think that the other thing you mentioned was about protein and fat and getting some of the right composition in your meal, Nancy. And I think that's something that most women are overlooking, right? So they go to Weight Watchers or they go to calorie counting and they only look at that number. Like, let me hit my 30 points today, or let me hit my 1,500 calories. And they don't ever consider like the composition of what they're actually putting into those calories. Because you could eat 1,500 calories of donuts and crackers, or you could have 1,500 calories of mostly protein and produce and fiber with some fat, really good balance. And those two things are going to do two very different things in your body. One is going to signal your body to keep hunger and cravings under control, help you lose fat. And the other one isn't really going to do that. It's going to make you hungrier. You're going to have a tendency to overeat, right? Because food is not just a number. There's also a composition there that's instructing your hormones what to do.
Yeah, and that sure makes a big difference on how you feel between meals. Gosh, because I used to snack so much. I mean, when I think back on I was on Weight Watchers, I was eating like every 2.5 hours, and I don't have to do that now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, because I'm
different.
eating balanced stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And my theory is when you're eating so frequently like that, every hour or two, you're grabbing for a snack. My theory is you're probably overdoing your calories and your points because you're not getting full. So then it becomes a problem of you're probably really inconsistent overall. So if you look over the period of 4 to 8 weeks, 12 weeks, right? We know weight loss requires a long period of consistency. If you're not really consistent within that time frame and you're kind of, going over your points or calories here and there, over time, you're really going to just stay the same or be in a surplus. You're not going to see a lot of fat loss. So,
yeah. Well, it certainly wasn't working for me.
yeah. But you know better now.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel so much better. I don't constantly think about food. That's so freeing. Geez, yeah. And my energy's better. Yes. It's been a real awakening. Absolutely.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. So let me ask you this, because there's a lot of women just like you. And if you remember back to a few months back when we first started working together, what you felt like, confused and always focusing on food and thinking about food and beating yourself up, all that stuff. If you think about that, and you think about all the women who are listening to this who are probably feeling just like you were, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Well, I think the one thing that I didn't understand, even though I thought I did, was when people would talk about making a lifestyle change and not just a temporary diet. To me, I thought, okay, well, that means learn how to memorize the calories or memorize a specific meal plan, and I'm just going to eat that for the rest of my life. But I realize now that it's about learning what you need to eat, when you need to eat it, and making choices that you can live with for the rest of your life. So that's what a lifestyle change means. I totally just didn't really understand that. And it's just small changes over a long period of time. And it's well worth the work of learning.
Yeah, that's interesting. You brought that up. I think there is a lot of women who don't really understand that. They don't really understand that, hey, maybe in the beginning, just add a vegetable or a fruit to every meal. And that could be your first step.
Yeah. Like, I remember when we started talking about lunches, you were like, that's a pretty decent lunch. Just add in some vegetables and you'll have it. And that was such an easy change. And yeah, it's just making a lot of little choices that are very livable. And yeah, you don't have to turn your life upside down and punish yourself. And gosh, be nice to yourself.
Yes.
That's a huge one. Yes.
Be nice to yourself. Ugh, I wish that I could impound that into every woman listening to this podcast. Be nice to yourself. Stop beating yourself up.
Yeah, I just had no idea how negative I was and how I just would beat myself up over the tiniest thing too. It wasn't even, it's like, gosh, I'm human, that stuff like that happens. Now I talk to myself like I would my daughter or my best friend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I
Keep
was
that
going to say. I was going to say, remember we talked a lot about your daughter, and I would say to you, would you talk to your daughter that way, Nancy? You would be like, well, no.
Never say that.
And I was like, well, then why are you saying that way to yourself? And you're like, well, gosh, I never thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was pretty eye-opening.
Yeah. That's the benefit, I think, of having somebody who is working with you, because they can see things that you aren't seeing.
Yes. Yes. It's good to get a fresh perspective and things. Even after I had been working with you for a little while, things would still crop up that you're like, now let's look at that. What are you saying there? And it's like, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't even realize I'm being mean to myself again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And the emotional eating wasn't about the food, was it?
Oh no, not at all. No, it was, yeah, there was a lot more going on there. And that was another thing that was hard for me to see without your help. I needed a fresh pair of eyes to kind of point that out and see what I was doing there.
Yep. The struggles with food are never really about the food, but yet we think, if I just have the meal plan, if somebody just tells me exactly what to eat, I'll be able to be so good. I'll be able to just lose this weight. Like, it's literally a fairy tale that we tell ourselves this stuff, because in my mind, the emotional eating, like in your instance, it was a symptom of how you were dealing with things in life, how you were reacting to things.
Absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't. Well, and I think we tell ourselves that too, because that's what marketing wants us to think.
Mm-hmm.
All these diets out there, they want us to think, oh, you just do this or just take this pill and it'll all just go away.
Yeah.
And you got to do the work. Yeah.
Well, and I think when you are in that place of desperation, you just want the weight off as quickly as possible. You want the relief from always thinking about being overweight and hating yourself so much. It's very tempting to fall into those traps.
It is. I mean, I was eating just, I think back on all the like chemicals and those pills I was taking, and I would never do that in normal circumstances, but I was so desperate that I'm like, if this will work, I'll do it. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Stimulants, and yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah. I did all that stuff back in the day too. There was a time too where I would just eat like cantaloupe and celery and carrots, and I thought I could just do that and then I could lose weight. But yeah, I always became really hungry, and so it didn't work out.
Yeah. And there was the military diet. Everybody, all my coworkers did the military diet where you just ate like toast and hard-boiled eggs, and oh, it was awful.
Yeah, I've seen that one. That one's awful. Ay, ay, ay. It's crazy the stuff we do in the name of weight loss. But if we really step back and think about it, like you said, it really requires a lifestyle transformation, which means baby steps. And like you said in the beginning, you were like, I felt like this wasn't hard enough. We were just working on breakfast, and I felt like this has to be too easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I really didn't. I really had to put my faith in you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the program. Yep.
Yep. And it's a good thing you did, because what if you hadn't put your faith in the program?
You're right. You're right. Where would I be now? I'd still be the same old Nancy. That's right.
I know, you're so different now. And it's so fascinating to see where you started and where you ended up, because when you started, you were so timid, you were so mean to yourself, so hard on yourself. And all of a sudden you just became this like lighter version of you, not only physically, but just like mentally and emotionally. Like all of a sudden you went after and got this totally different career. You're like, Megan, I just decided I didn't like this job anymore. So I quit and I went off and I'm doing this thing and I really like it.
You're right. You're right. I would have never done that 7-8 months ago.
Yeah. So it's fascinating when we fix certain things in our lives, it sort of trickles into all areas of our lives.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm really proud of you, and I'm happy for you that you've been able to achieve so much greatness.
Well, thank you. I'm proud of myself too.
I know. Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for coming on the podcast today. I'm sure all the ladies who've been listening to our conversation today probably have enjoyed hearing it, and they probably can relate to it quite a lot. So I really thank you for having the courage to come on and share your journey with everyone, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for all you've helped me with. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Bye, dear.
Bye-bye.
Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, you have to come check out my free weight loss class. It's the 5 steps to lasting weight loss, how hormones impact weight loss, and the truth about lasting weight loss without relying on willpower, workouts, or deprivation. Click the link in the show notes to watch that free class today. And if you are a woman over 35 with 20 to 50 or more pounds to lose, schedule a free weight loss breakthrough session with me after you watch that class, and let's talk about your 20 to 50 or more pound weight loss plan.